Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Demystifying AI for MSPs, where we talk about AI, what it means for you, current events, and hopefully bring some clarity to your understanding. My name is Will Dowling. I'm the host of this show. I'm a product marketing manager here at ConnectWise. And I'm going to kick it over to my regular panelists first to quickly introduce themselves before we get into today's guest.
My name is Kyle Jackson. I am responsible for the ConnectWise Innovation Lab.
Keith Sartain, Senior Director of IT for ConnectWise.
Right, and we have a very special guest here today. So we have Mr. Wilson Bautista. You want to introduce yourself and tell us about you?
My name is Wilson Bautista. I'm CEO of June Cyber. We're based out of St. Petersburg, Florida, and very happy to be here. Thank you.
Awesome, man. Glad to have you. So I like to kick off our show talking a little bit about what's got everybody excited this week. So Keith, I want to start with you, man. What's got you excited this week?
Well, I think everybody that follows AI probably saw Meta's new announcement. They dropped the biggest news of the century this week. I think that we say that every week, but for the open source crowd, this is probably the biggest thing that's happened for AI that I can think of.
Okay.
The Llama 3.1. Llama is their large language model. LLM Llama, cute, huh? So that's where that came from. But they're at 3.1. They've been training their biggest model for a while now, the 405 billion parameter model. I think we mentioned a few weeks ago that we thought it would be good. It's really good. So it is, it's really, depending on the benchmark you choose, it's 4.0, like the best GPT, the best Claude. It's right there. Like like it's splitting hairs on which one's better. I thought it'd be just underneath it and not quite as good, but it's like right there as good. And it's fully open source, right?
Awesome.
What open source means, I won't dive down that rabbit hole again, but the fact that you can get the weights and you can do whatever you want with it is really important as it relates to the open source community. Really big deal. So they released their smaller models, the 8B. When you say a number in a B, that's how many parameters it is. 8 billion parameter model has been updated. It's really good, 70 billion. But the 405B is what has everybody excited.
Very cool.
That's a really big deal, and it performs really well. Along with that, they released some extra tools. They're open sourcing tools around something they're calling Llama Guard and Prompt Guard. They're trying to make it so you have all this open source framework to work with large language models, and they want to be the de facto standard for that and for APIs.
Okay.
So they're open sourcing that too. So really big deal. Lots of good performance. I did some. Right now, you can get the Llama 405B, which is going to be less expensive than every other major model to run. And you can get it hosted places where you're sharing it with it's multi-tenant, you're sharing it with other people. But even if you want to run it yourself and you have your own private copy, the best I can tell, about $3,000 or $4,000 a month to run it on your own hardware. But if you think about spreading that across your organization and having a $0 inference cost, that's kind of a big deal. That could be really cost effective, and the amount of all your tokens are free at that point, so you could send as much data as you wanted to it. I was, chatting with some of the group. I was like, do we start just passing our entire knowledge base now with every request if tokens are free? Like if we're hosting it ourselves and we have no incremental costs, rather than doing retrieval augmentation, like the somewhat complex way that we try to pull in information in real time, just pass it all our information. Anyway, I don't know if that's what'll happen, but it's at least something, another thing you can think about. A couple of new use cases.
What's the context window again?
It's 128K. So it's not the some of them are $1 million. There's people talking about 2 million. 128K.
It's 2 million, I think.
Yeah, they announced 2 million, but you can get 1 million. So some of this stuff is vaporware. But yeah, interesting. And another thing that they pointed out as a use case is that they're allowing you to use it for training small models. So if you take so you can make synthetic information. Synthetic information means you just ask it a question and you take its response. Like, you could ask it, how would Einstein have looked at the equation for whatever?
Mhm.
And whatever that response is can be data that's used to fine tune your other model, right? So we can
Yeah.
keep asking it, and we can kind of pull out all of the good information that we want out of a big model,
Mhm.
feed that into a small model, and make our small model better. And then you could have purpose-built small models. So this is a really big deal. I think it foreshadows the other guys that are going to be racing to do open source models. This is so good that there's probably going to be a race there. There's going to be a lot of good open source content, which kind of leads into my next thing that excites me.
Hold on, because there's a lot to talk about here.
Yeah, there is.
Bring it.
Lots to unpack.
Because beyond that, Zuckerberg also made a pretty impassioned plea about the value of open source and why they're leaning in that direction themselves as a company, and why others, trying to get others to follow.
Mm-hmm.
So it'd be interesting if others follow suit. Interesting, right before that, Google also open sourced some AI tools in the last week or so. So again, the companies who have literally spent billions, it's great that we're leaning that direction, but we're still going to have that debate on the value of open source versus have it being controlled and private. With the obvious risk, Wilson, right? With the obvious risk of, if it's open source, that means everybody gets it. Like we're potentially just seeding China, and I referenced China. I read an article recently that talked about China's had issues because they don't have the hardware to support it, but they're just piggybacking. All of those companies are piggybacking on whatever Llama puts out because it solves the work. So like there's the real challenge of is open source the way or not? And I think at some point we got to dig into that conversation just to figure out. Again, I think it would be a worthy discussion. You guys tell us if you think going down the path of open source versus not. I know we have a lot of open source fans. I'm looking at you, Slagle and Tom Lawrence.
Well, I mean, right now, that whoever trains the most has the best model. So Llama trained the heck out of this thing. They put 15 trillion tokens into a 405 billion parameter model. Just last year, if there's white papers from Google that were cited by everybody, like you only train up to 1 token per parameter. So if you had 405 billion parameters, you'd only train with 400 billion tokens. Now new research says keep on going, and it gets better if you keep trying. So now they've got 15 trillion tokens. This thing took 6 months with 16,000 GPUs. The only thing that I have, when it comes to open source that I would offer to everybody is like, these are super rich companies that are just giving away the results of training.
Yeah.
The training is super expensive. I am slightly concerned. Like, I love this. I think this is a good direction, and it means a lot for a lot of people. But at the end of the day, if they're giving away what cost hundreds of millions of dollars to do, and there is no revenue model, is that being genuine, or are they just scorching the earth so that nobody else could possibly compete, right? So if Zuck's going to track you on Facebook, and he's going to use that, he's lost $48 billion in the last couple of years on his metaverse and this AI. No revenue model yet, but he's got, if you're worth $1 trillion, what's 48 billion between friends? These are the things that happen now. X is going to get into the game, which is my next update. Was X.AI and Elon. He built out 100,000 GPUs in 16 days. At least that's what he claims.
GPUs, man.
It's a lot of GPUs.
A lot of GPUs.
He says he's going to have the best model by the end of the year. And before I go any further, I'm going to say all these guys that are saying we're more about safety than they are, and all these guys that left OpenAI to go do something else, we're all about safety. Nah, you're all racing to be first. And if you released X version 1, X version 2, and X version 3 in 1 year, you're not about safety. Okay. OpenAI waited 1.5 years in fine-tuning, training, and alignment between the time they did ChatGPT and finished training it and they released it. These guys now, they're just letting it rip. Maybe that's the game. Maybe you gotta let it go. But 100,000 GPUs, they couldn't even get power in Memphis to this data center. They brought in 14 tractor trailers of generators, hooked up natural gas to them, and they're generating their own power. That's
That's
classic Elon right there.
That's a lot of generators to
That's
power
crazy.
a lot of GPUs.
And they're going to open source that. So, these guys probably aren't going to MMA. Maybe they will. Maybe Zuck and Elon will fight someday, but they're going to fight for open source, right? And that this is going to be the battle, and those guys are going to be duking it out. So that'll be an interesting battle. But I think we know that we're going to have great open source models for a while. Now, I do want to differentiate when they say open source. Nothing about the training data or how they train it is open source. So you can't really do it yourself if you don't have all of that.
Right.
You get the results of that, but that's powerful too. So that's a good thing. And as much as I'm like, I worry about these big companies doing this, and us not being able to have real alternatives. You can't afford it. So what's the alternative? So if they're not doing it, it's not getting done, and they're releasing some of the results. So I can't be too critical of Zuck giving something away for free to be popular. Maybe it is the only option because it costs so much to do these things. But that's the big news, and these two guys, these two heavyweights are going at it. I think what's the next big move to watch is these are 400 billion parameter models.
Right.
Even within the Llama family, 400B does better than 70B, does better than 8B. So what's next? 1 trillion, 2 trillion, 10 trillion? And I think at that level, it gets really expensive to run. You can't run it yourself. Yeah. And that's where you talk about the closed source models. Will OpenAI and Google and these other guys have the hardware to run that, and then they'll be able to pull away again. But right now, the gap is completely closed. The open source community has an option that they can run themselves that matches 4.0 and Claude and is state of the art.
Yeah. So if you're watching and you have thoughts on this, we'd love to hear from you as well. What about the two of you? Y'all have any thoughts on the huge info dump that Keith just gave us? I think it was awesome.
Yeah, I mean, not to be outdone, and but we're certainly not going to double click at the detail that Keith just did, but not be outdone. The French right, have their own open source company, and they released just yesterday their large 2 model, which rivals OpenAI and Meta. So I mean, this is another also conversation where there's another again, no monetization path. I'm not really sure how they're going to recoup the expense at this point, but there's another option, right? Mistral AI is doing great things. They profess to do better at math and coding than Llama with Meta.
Okay.
So we'll, I think the proof is going to be in the pudding.
Yeah.
The reality is there are no shortage of options to go play with toys and figure out how those toys can be beneficial, right?
Yeah.
In other news, it's exciting to see the practical application of AI, right?
Yeah.
Where the use case is really, oh, wow, that's awesome. There was a study that came out of UCLA. They're leveraging Unfold AI, which is owned by another large medical conglomerate. And that allowed these urologists to increase their ability to predict the return of cancer after it's been excised by 17%. So 17% is not a massive number, but
That's
it went
huge.
from like the 60s to like 84%.
Yeah.
So I'd feel good about there's an 84% chance now that this AI is going to review it, and then the output of that is, whether or not they got to go back and do more, right? Or I need further treatment. So that's exciting. It's an application that's real world. This is journal, or they published in the journal at the end of May. It's just making the rounds. But that's another example of just many of all the money that's being spent in AI right now.
Yeah.
I don't know what the percentage is, but I'm going to imagine double digits, high percentage. Healthcare is one of them. And
yeah, absolutely.
Right. If we look at all the potential downside of AI, this is the path with the potential upside.
Yeah.
We're going to live better. We're going to have higher quality of life. I mean, at some point, it's going to democratize care, right? It's going to be easier to get it. I'll be able to apply it anywhere. All I need is data. Right?
Yeah. The only any of these things can be used in the wrong way. Like a couple of years ago, there was an example of someone that you train it on all these things that make you healthy.
Mm-hmm.
Ask it, okay, what's the cheapest way I would kill someone? And the problem is that once it knows what makes you healthy, it came back with hundreds of results.
Let's just go right there.
It's right there. I love it.
Right.
All right.
And so these things that are built for good, if you put all of that data in
Mhm.
there on what makes you healthy, it also knows what makes you unhealthy.
Not healthy.
So these models, people say, is AI going to do it? And I think Elon pointed out one time it'll probably be a person with AI that does the
Yep.
bad stuff. So people have been looking at what is the right level of access for people, and there's people that would argue open it all up. That's the only way to make sure it's secure. And then there's other people that say let's keep it locked down and give it to the people that need it. Then who decides who needs it? And so lots of debates. That those can go off the rails quickly. But there's a lot of good potential for where we're going.
And we're not even talking conspiracy theory here. We're talking
This is real.
inevitability, right? This is reality,
Yeah.
right?
Oh yeah.
Like we know governments have the capital and are chasing,
Mhm.
private monster models, right?
Yeah,
there's
absolutely.
just no way around it. So,
Yeah.
speaking of chasing monster models, Wall Street had some challenges, some questions about it. So, Washington Post this week basically said, "Hey, there might be a bubble." And we know we've gone through bubbles before, but there might be an AI bubble, and there's questions on whether or not the amount of spending and the evaluations are going to, reach to a point where they actually level out and make sense, right? So at some point, if you want to go make some money, go start an AI company, right? There's a decent business model on that right now, but those valuations are they grounded in real dollars and cents? Well, the private equity and VC. So this is a Washington Post. Jess, you can share this one if you don't mind. This interesting read, good points. It goes on and it references Google, right? Google,
Okay.
Google in the first quarter spent like $12 billion, and the argument was, listen, we're not going to. You're basically telling investors we're not going to turn around and see a return on that 12 billion right now.
Yeah.
Right. But eventually we're going to get to that. Mm-hmm. So like that, the question is, are we chasing our tail with the amount of money that's going in? There are some that estimate that, that we're talking about a market cap of trillions and trillions of dollars for value creation in AI. Others are just questioning if that's viable or even plausible. So
there's been a lull in progress, right? So we got to 1.7 trillion parameters last year with GPT-4. Everything now is under 1 trillion parameters, right?
Yeah.
So there's been a lull. I think we're building out the, NVIDIA, if you haven't noticed, has done well. There's hundreds of thousands of those things waiting to be unleashed with the next set of models. I think because there hasn't been the quantum leap that we had from 3.5 to 4, the 5 hasn't happened yet. So we can say there's a lull. Maybe this isn't as applicable as we thought. Maybe it was overhyped. Like I think a lot of people think that just because it's hyped means that it's done. Mm-hmm. It's hyped. I think it's hyped legitimately, but I do think we're on a marathon. We're a mile in.
Right.
I'm not. Some people think just because it's hyped means that we're a mile 25. We're maybe 2 miles in right now, but this is going to happen, I think. But over projecting where it is I think making people have expectations that aren't realistic.
Yeah.
15% offload of work right now is realistic. If you lean in, you might even get 20 or 25, but that's all you're going to get. If someone's telling you you're going to get 100% offload, I want to go work for them. But I don't know who that is, right? That's expecting that's near is false, as I don't think is realistic. And I think that's where some of the hype versus reality versus what can be done, where are we in the process? I'll just say I think it's all real, and we need to keep watching it. But there's a long slope left for us to get better.
The practical application, I'm going to give you the perfect segue here. The practical application is the component that's missing, right?
Yeah.
They're saying that the ability to leverage AI, to actually accomplish the tasks is missing.
Yeah.
And to be fair, like how do I weaponize the AI to actually solve the problems?
Mm-hmm.
And of course, right, we can do all this talk about these models, but how, until you can leverage the model to actually accomplish the goal, right? And that's the missing component.
I would agree.
So it becoming practical is the real thing. So moving beyond widgets, which is what every software company in the world has been chasing, is how do I improve that? How do I build a quick widget that uses AI that solves this little thing? We've done it ourselves, right? And then moving beyond that and driving real AI value, reasoning and logic and desired outcomes. Once we start checking those boxes, I think the productization of AI will take off. We'll see another jump.
Well, I would just make one last case, is that the scorched earth, I think this is a completely different rant, and I won't go down it.
So we don't have time for another rant today.
Charging $20 a month for something that might have 10% offload in your job, unless you make $100 a month, charging $20 a month and setting the standard that AI is only worth $20 or $30 a month, or it's open sourced and you can't monetize it at all, means that it's going to be very difficult for companies to find a way to monetize. Like, we either have to get comfortable with the fact that if this is offloading $1,000 a month, it might be worth $200 a month. And if we can't do that, there is a certain amount of cost it takes to build AI and buy a bunch. Meta was trained on $16,000, $30,000 GPUs. The electric bill for what X just built is about $130 million a year. Just the electric bill.
Small beans, right?
Right. That's just for electricity. Like, there has to be. So when people say, "Well, where's your revenue coming from?" Have we established yet that we can charge for it? Have we established yet that there's something that people, can see the value and are willing to invest the personal time to make sure they're getting the most out of it, and that we can do it? So I won't rant more than that, but I do think that there's an opportunity for us to that it's going to be difficult for companies unless people lean into the right spin for the right offset.
So Wilson, you've been pretty quiet this whole time. I'm sure. I mean, it's hard to get a word in edgewise between those two sometimes.
Yeah, y'all are talking circles,
right?
Wow.
Yeah.
So, any thoughts on kind of what they've said? Any takeaways you want to add?
You talked about the practical use of AI, and that's something that we do every day. At June Cyber, we utilize AI pretty much for everything.
Let's dig into that, man.
Yeah,
tell us a little bit.
Let's just say a simple use case: marketing. Right, we need to create content quick. Right, so we invest in tools that use artificial intelligence to maybe split up our videos to different content. So we maybe have like a 5-minute video we created, we put it into some kind of application, and it spits out 10 different 20-second clips.
Love it.
With captions.
Absolutely.
Right. How much time did that save me? Right. That, because my time is money.
Absolutely. Time is money.
My people's time are money. Right. So one 5-minute video probably saved us, I don't know, 50 minutes plus on somebody just doing edits, and then the captioning as well. Another one that I like, talking about video editing, is when I do videos, I have a video editor that takes away my filler words. Great.
Nice.
Yeah. And I mean, not that it makes me sound smart, but when it takes away those kind of words.
Love it.
It just helps out with the editing process. So that's practically how we use it. Now, we focus a lot on compliance work at the company. And one of the ways that we utilize AI, again, is with RAG technology. Right. We load up a lot of PDFs with various topics, and we're able to query it. It beats searching through multiple PDFs. Right.
Oh yeah.
And especially if I'm able to cite the source, right? Because that was a big issue before. It's like, how do you know that it's not some kind of hallucination coming out of the bot that you're talking to? Now I have a source, and I could point to say this is the source of truth.
Yeah, absolutely. That's very good point.
And retrieval augmentation, RAG, it's That's kind of one of the other places where AI is kind of like, we've tried it, and people, one of the things that happens is it will hallucinate. You'll ask it about a document, it'll carry on confidently way past your document
Yep.
and just, fill in words that came from its training data that didn't come from your document. So there's a little bit of an art to making sure that you can pull that out. It's a lot of this stuff isn't as plug and play as we hoped. So,
Yeah.
And as models get better, they're getting better with retrieval augmentation and our techniques for asking and blah, blah, blah. But that's one of the other retractions around AI is like, yeah, I thought I'd plug in AI and I'd put the RAG and it'd point to my documents and it'd give me perfect answers. I think we saw a legal case. Someone analyzed the top 3 legal. People are paying a lot for this legal reference that's using AI. The best one was 60-something% accurate, and the worst one was 20-something%. So can you imagine a law firm paying maybe tens of thousands of dollars a month, getting references, and they're wrong?
I did see a case recently where a lawyer got disbarred because they had used AI to help build their case, and it was citing cases that never existed.
Yeah,
it made them up.
One.
Usually,
Yeah, I did. Yeah. I was going to say that, like, with our use of RAG implementation, a lot of what we do on the front end is make sure that if you don't know the answer, don't make it up.
Yeah.
Like,
oh, nice.
With the prompt engineering, just say, I don't know the answer to this. So that's how we've been trying to work around that issue specifically.
It's creative.
Yeah, absolutely. So you were telling me earlier that your company, you focus a little more on compliance side of things, right?
Yes.
I want to dig into that because I know AI in the world of compliance seems to be a very slippery slope. So tell us a little bit about what you're doing. I know you said you're using AI to help with compliance. Can we kind of double click into that a little bit?
Okay, so I mentioned a little bit about like creating a chatbot to look at PDFs more clearly.
Yeah.
One of the things that we're exploring a bit more is how do we utilize AI a bit more to help us with our compliance practice.
Awesome.
Right? Because a lot of our business is about readiness, right? So we have a lot of clients that want to get ready for a SOC 2 audit, HIPAA audit, CMMC, cybersecurity maturity model certification audit.
Right.
So how do we utilize AI to get these companies there faster? I mean, a lot of it, like going back to the source and being able to cite different things is great. But how about we take in some of the information that they provide us about their environments and be able to have a bunch of source material behind it, like, for example, troubleshooting, best practice.
Right. Okay.
And be able to say, okay, hey, I've got this stuff. This is what's going on in their environment. Can you, what do you think? And it just says, okay, best practice here, site here, site here, site here.
Okay.
And what is that done? That is really made my time more efficient in being able to research the information I need so I can give it to the client faster so they're ready faster for an audit.
Okay.
Not to mention, as you talk through this, the ability for the client to engage in clarification with a bot who understands the underwriting rule that it's trying to satisfy with the data and knowledge that it already has and understands about the company. Like that, it could be kind of self-fulfilling component where that bot could enable and support that effort. And there's always need for clarification. There's always need for, okay, well, does that apply here, or does this satisfy the requirement? If you trained a bot with the full understanding of the framework that they're chasing, that actually becomes useful. Right?
Yeah. So, for example, you upload all of a company's policies and procedures,
right?
And then you look at their technical information, and you say, okay, you say, hey, I'm looking for, let's just say, they say that accounts can't be over 90 days old, not used.
Right.
Right. Okay. I put in the report, look at the policy. This is what it says. It says these accounts are all 90, like you're not within your policy.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it
Oh.
cuts down drastically on the time that you're having to spend doing research. Sounds like.
That's an analyst,
Yeah,
right? That's
absolutely.
an analyst
Yeah.
looking through tons and tons of information, saying, okay, copy, paste, put it in my Excel spreadsheet, copy and paste.
Yeah.
So
And here, the beauty of this is because of this, I think we kind of go through these conversations where some of the thought processes, all right, is AI going to replace the analyst? No.
Yeah.
Right. The analyst and the governing body exist for that reason, right? To have eyes, impartial eyes, to evaluate and attest that this is going on, right? That the situation that's being described is either met or not met, some rule or framework. However, the assisting of the work that's being accomplished, the assisting of the goal on both sides, I think becomes a valuable endeavor for the conversation of AI, where AI is helping both the readiness component, the collecting component, and even the analyst of evaluating, again, context and citing and all that stuff. I can see some analysts shortcutting and relying on it, but there'll be some point where I think the governing bodies will define greater the use of AI in their process.
The way that I look at it is that it should augment what you're trying to do. So, and reduce the time that it takes you to do things. So for example, readiness, again, I need to see that you're fulfilling some objective of control.
Right.
All right. I could use, I say to the bot or whatever I have, the program, say, hey, I need to see evidence for this. And it's already looked at your organization's technology. So for example, access control, again, give me all of the accounts of, these 5 apps. It already knows who the application owners are, sends an email out, has them upload whatever, and then it tells me I'm done.
Wow. That's
nice.
Yeah, that's a lot of time saving.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man.
So one of the things I like to say, for these, if you're going to do retrieval, it is nice to get the answer, but it's really nice to have a link to the document source and the solutions that give you that. And then because the accountability, we're not going to delegate with the level of accuracy we have, it keeps getting better, but we aren't delegating accountability yet to any AI that I know of, right? Accountability still stops with a human, but then you click on the document to see where it referenced it. Then you can read it and say, oh, I see. Yeah, you were right. Or, well, you interpreted that a little weird. That's not exactly right, or whatever. But you look at the document. But then it's even faster getting to that, right? So first you get a summary, click right through, see where you are in the document, goes right to the spot, and then you say, yeah, this is. So anyway, that's still speeding you up, but accountability doesn't leave the human.
They're never going to pass that over, right? And the argument, or at least full responsibility over it. The argument is like, why are most of these frameworks governed by finance organizations, right? Why finance? Well, because they're forced, based off the nature of their business, to be ridiculously anal and like highly focused, right, on following the rules. So like the governing body, that alignment there of it being an accounting background is in my mind, the level of trust is just not going to be there without like full 100% validation. And that accreditation is on the company who's doing the audit, and the risk is on them for doing that attestation, and the auditor involved. Like everybody in the process has a stake in the fact that I say yes, you're approved, or no, you didn't qualify, right? You didn't meet it. AI has no stake in that game, right? And until we get past hallucination, we'll never get. I don't think we'll get to that point where it can be fully trusted in those endeavors. But again, the augmentation of work is just another example where it's proving to be
absolutely
worth the effort.
That's awesome. Like, again, just removing a lot of that effort, especially when you're coming to compliance paperwork. Like, how much, if you don't mind me asking, what percentage, if you had to guess, of efficiency gain are you seeing just from being able to do that more?
Okay. I wrote
conservatively.
Yeah, conservatively. Depends on the situation.
Okay.
But I'm saving between 30 and 50% of my time.
Oh wow,
That's good.
yeah, that's awesome.
That's high.
Yeah.
You leaned in early though.
I leaned in very early.
Yeah.
So we invested in. We like to be forward thinking the way that we do things.
Right.
So it's not just AI that we're working with. We're already working with VR, right? We're starting a VR side of our business as well.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's a lot of offload. 30 to 50% is, that's high for the industry. That's really good. So that's impressive.
Yeah, we try to incorporate AI in pretty much everything that we do because we've seen the value it brings to us, like just by automating tasks,
Right.
and also what value brings to our clients as well, because it's able to give them answers faster, especially when it comes to help desk.
Now, are you kind of acting as that guru for your clients rolling out AI as well? Is that something that you guys have embraced so far?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So another thing that we try to do is we don't say we're just like your IT company that, hooks things up and make sure that things run. We want to be able to help you leverage technology so you become more profitable. So when they ask me, they say, okay, well, what's this AI stuff about? It's like, well, have you ever thought about a chat bot on your website? Right? How do you configure that?
Right.
And then I have to explain. It's like, well, you need to train it on data, and you do a little bit of education. And then they're like, wow, this is a value add. I didn't know that you knew this.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's fantastic that you're seeing that value add. Kyle, you have your finger up.
I do. I have a question. I have a question for Wilson. So Wilson, with a man with as many certifications at the end of your name,
20 or 30.
I'd be interested to get your perspective on the compliance side of the world, on the truly on the risk side of the world.
Yeah.
With your clients and their data, trusting even the Microsoft or the OpenAIs of the world who say, hey, look, we're not going to train on your data, right? But there's still a risk that that may possibly be happening. Again, it's all through the terms and conditions of all their documentation.
Right.
It says they're not doing it, but there are others that say, I just don't trust anyone with what makes my company so important, which is the data that we've got behind us.
Right.
Oh, I'd be curious to get your perspective on that. If you've had any sensitive clients who've been like, yeah, we want the benefit, we don't want the risk with putting it out there.
Yep. That's why they have their closed model in-house models to do all of their knowledge retrieval. So we see that a lot, and I mean it's we've already seen it when OpenAI released ChatGPT. One of the company's IP is
right there
getting spit out. Nobody wants that. Right? Nobody wants their IP to be stolen or viewed by anybody else by accident.
Yeah.
So that's why I've seen a lot of clients move to closed source in-house development of AI applications.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And obviously the front end, you referenced this earlier, that the front end level of effort is dramatically higher, right? It's not just readily available product for me to deploy, right? The connections and plugins aren't obvious, right? Copilot is one of the cool things. One of the first things I loved about what Microsoft did with Copilot is they built it off of the Power Platform connectors. So all the connectors that already existed for Power Platform immediately worked for Copilot.
Right.
But in a open local setup configuration, that's a little bit more complex, right? It's a little bit more moving parts to set up. But from your perspective and your client's perspective, the risk is worth the effort.
It is. When they're using their own information, they're confident that it's spitting out the right information. They feel great about it, and the investment is definitely worth it.
And I think it'll keep getting better. The tooling, there'll be a day where you used to scan in your documents and it just kind of worked and it uploaded to a document store. Like I think there'll be a time where you just say, yeah, here's all my documents. It's figured out, and that you don't have to think about it. So, we've been talking to some companies that try to do that, but give it a year or two, and I think it'll be stupid simple for people to to be able to do that in their own environment by themselves.
So have you seen a large uptake of customers coming to you asking about this, or are you finding out after they've tried to implement it themselves? What does that timeline look like for you these days?
So our clients know that we think like this already. So they're already coming to me like, hey,
Excellent.
how do I leverage this chat GPT thing?
Mhm.
So they're already asking me.
Yeah.
But I'm assuming now that people are trying to figure out AI. It's like,
Right.
I need to be in the game because this is happening and this is
Yeah.
here to stay.
It's here to stay.
It's not just some buzzword. It is impacting businesses now because businesses that are leveraging AI
Mhm.
are moving faster.
Yeah.
Right. They're making decisions quicker.
Mhm.
And yeah, if you're not in that game, then you're going to be left behind real soon.
Absolutely.
Yep. Yeah, there's people that are scared of it. The people that are saying, this isn't really happening. If they read an article that says it's overhyped, then there's people that'll, that don't understand it and will say, I don't need to move. I think everybody needs to know what this, kind of what this means. And I don't think it's good long-term strategy to ignore that this is happening, right? That AI is happening. It doesn't mean that it's 100% offload yet, but it also means that you might have a little window, but you're going to have to figure out what this means for you and your business, or someone else will.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you didn't, when you told us who you were and you said you were the CEO of June Cyber, you stopped, right? You just stopped there. You didn't complete the sentences that you should have. Like, what else are you involved in?
Okay.
And let's start with like the most relevant for the nerds.
Really?
Like I don't need to know
I
about.
only got half an hour.
I don't need to know about the flower club that you're part of. But like you stay busy.
Yeah, I do stay busy. So I do have my own company, June Cyber.
Mhm.
I was a veteran in the Marines and I've retired out of the Army. And one of my big passions is helping out vets.
Awesome.
And especially because we look for purpose when we get out. I wasn't able to find that, but I did find it when I got into cybersecurity. So I also run a nonprofit called the Cyber Ohana Project. We help veterans explore careers in cybersecurity.
It's amazing.
And then I also run B-Side St. Pete, which is a cybersecurity conference in St. Petersburg, Florida. So yeah, just do a few things.
Few things.
Yeah, keep myself a little busy.
Yeah. That's amazing stuff,
Yeah.
man. It's good.
Thanks,
Thanks for your
man.
service first,
Yeah,
as
absolutely.
always. And it's I love seeing people give back, and being active in the community, driving the community is something that I always appreciate. So where I can help, let me know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah.
If we can help, let us know.
And drop us get us a link for the Ohana project. If you don't mind. What is the link so people can check that out?
Yeah, cyberohanaproject.org.
Ohana, OHANA.
Yep.
Got it. What is Ohana? Again.
Ohana means family.
Got it.
Love it. I mean, it's great.
Good stuff.
So I know we've got 17 minutes left in our time.
Or we could give them back the time in their day.
Why would we give them time back in their day? We have so many things we could talk about.
Yeah. Do you find anybody that's, just a quick question, is anybody looking for compliance as it relates to AI itself? Are people worried about data leakage or things as it relates to AI itself?
Yeah. Well, there are companies that are building AI products, right? A lot of companies know what the ISO 27001 is, which information security process and procedures of an information security system.
Right.
You get certified and it shows everybody in the world that you are doing what you need to be doing, or at least you have the systems in place. ISO, the International Standards Organization, has a publication specifically for artificial intelligence systems.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So people are now wanting to know, okay, if I work with your company and you're an AI company, how do I know that you're doing what you need to do to ensure that your systems are built properly, and at least to a standard that that an organization can say, yes, you built your systems, your processes to a standard where we think it's high quality.
Okay.
So we're seeing that now.
Okay.
It just came out early, I believe, earlier this year, and
Yeah.
now people could get certified.
That's awesome. Are you seeing a lot of demand for that right now? Is that something that you see in the near future a lot of demand for?
In the near future.
Okay.
Right now, everybody's just trying to build stuff as fast as they can.
It's still the Wild
Yeah.
West.
yeah,
Yeah.
it is still
Yeah.
Wild
Yeah.
West.
Yes, I think you'll see, just like ISO did, all of the governing bodies and the frameworks have put out their suggestions, and those suggestions will evolve into new branches of their governing frameworks. So
Mandates.
yeah, those mandates will come in, but we're again, you can't write a framework right now, because 2 weeks from now, the standard way to go solve that problem completely flipped on its head.
Yeah.
So there's no consistency in delivery and methodology at this point, because it's just evolving so quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you seeing any struggles with that when looking in the world of compliance?
We're looking at like a lot of, even I think Meta and Google are not releasing some models because of privacy concerns.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're seeing that from just a legal compliance side.
Mm-hmm.
So we're looking at that.
Okay.
Meta in the last week is they're not offering their model in the EU because of regulatory concerns, not a specific regulation, but I guess the tone that was coming out meant that they weren't comfortable doing it. And then Brazil, they also are not releasing it in Brazil. So that's another thing that'll be interesting about the open source is there isn't indemnity for companies, because how are you going to do indemnity and say, I'm going to protect you and my lawyers are going to protect you if you're not charging anything.
Right.
And then, they haven't been sued yet, right? OpenAI got sued, that they were the big fish. But if they're training on 15 trillion tokens, a lot of those tokens are copyrighted, and they're from the New York Times and every source that you can think of, right? So these people are racing. I am sure they are not filtering for copyrighted data. And X is going to do it and everybody's going to do it. But if these things are free and someone comes to you later and says, hey, you've been using, data that you shouldn't have, who's going to protect you? So these are things that I'm watching. Maybe it's all going to be fair use. Maybe it's all going to work out. But we do know with Microsoft that they do give you an indemnity. If you use Copilot, they'll defend you if you get sued. But we're paying for that. So they have good lawyers. So these are things that haven't played out yet.
Yeah.
I don't know where they'll land. They're things that we're having to keep our eye on. But these are things that are that we're going to have to watch as this landscape continues to evolve.
I agree.
I think it's interesting too, from the cyber compliance world. Like we've talked about the benefits that we've gained on the business side, operational benefits, efficiencies, by leveraging AI. Like I in a past life, I did some confidence work for a pen testing company, and I've talked my way into data centers. I've talked my way into places that I had no business being. And 90% of that work is analog, right? It's just physical in the space.
Mm-hmm.
But there are components of that with the tools that are available now, make that a whole lot easier, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can take your security officer's voice that he laid out in a webinar, and I can clone it, and I can call the front desk and say, hey, I've got somebody coming. I mean, like there's so many ways where you can game this now.
Yeah.
And leverage technology in a way that is going to just simplify the effort. So we're as the bad guys up the game, we've got to up our game.
Absolutely.
And the unfortunate reality is, for those of us who look at compliance and see it as just this weight of unnecessary, overbearing load on the support and infrastructure of just trying to accomplish the end goal of the task of whatever the job is. Those frameworks and those rules and those policies, if they're not adhered to, on the other end of it is real risk and real disruption, if not devastation to a business. Well, I think it's going to be really cool. One of the problems with policies and frameworks is that for most organizations, they are flat documents that live on paper, right?
It's true.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but being able to drive those policies into actionable, returnable, usable, either bots or capabilities that go right back to the user. Hey, you just transgressed this policy.
Yeah.
You know, we noticed you did something, and in the process of doing it, you transgressed this policy. Here's some real world training as to why we don't do that. Like that capability is going to change because we're the weakest link, right?
Yeah,
as
absolutely.
users. So I think that on the other end of that, the compliance and cybersecurity world, we're gonna give users a better chance, and we're gonna have to, right, Keith? Because user is a 4-letter word for a reason, right? We can't trust them.
Yeah, we've got a friend that's Bill Bensing. He's actually doing a startup to do precisely that. So think of software-defined infrastructure, but software-defined compliance. So having a framework in place that allows you to trigger on something changing that doesn't meet a compliance policy. So that's
cool.
That's his new vision, new thing he's working on. So yeah, that's the whole field of how do you go from a paper document to something that's enforceable or auditable or digitally auditable, where you don't have to send in a human to get all your screenshots of Active Directory and just to see if you're in compliance, but you have something that in real time either enforces or reports on drift.
So one of the things that I wrote about in one of my books, Practical Cyber Intelligence.
Author.
Wait, you're also an author? You left that out.
Yes.
I know.
What's the title again?
Practical Cyber Intelligence. So
get it on Amazon.
Love it.
Yeah.
So I wrote the book basically because I was working in a corporate environment and they just weren't talking.
Yeah.
It's just they were working in silos. And I was remembering, I'm like, okay, how did we do this in Afghanistan? We had this huge regiment and division, division, and we had all these troops, and each of them have their functions within each other. How did we communicate? Because that's what I was missing at this organization. And so I wrote a book about how you can improve an information security organization by building capability maturity models that increase on capabilities as you progress, but at the same time is communicate and pass information that's required in order to make a decision. Because ultimately, you have to get a lot of data, a lot of inputs in order for people that need to make the decisions to make decisions on time. Right. That requires intelligence to be delivered to those stakeholders on time and in exactly the form that it needs to be. And one of the things that wasn't available now, available then, but is available now, is how we're able to use like predictive analytics. And on top of that, agents that are able to review data based on whatever's coming into it. And then if it meets a certain threshold, be able to deliver it faster to who it needs to go to. And that's where I think from a compliance risk and cybersecurity side, if we are able to define the thresholds, define the risk, we're able to give that information to the right people at the right time.
Right.
That's
I mean,
awesome.
So it's not all doom and gloom.
It's not all doom and gloom. It's
No.
not all doom and gloom.
AI,
That's wonderful.
is all about giving, I call it applied intelligence now. I don't know if that's the right term, but it's a way to say that it's somebody else's intelligence. It's just a way to regurgitate it for the most part. That we're not doing novel intelligence for the most part now. We're just, but if you can use tools to get that intelligence quicker to someone else, especially in a military situation, and you can take that knowledge, you can take those learnings and apply it to a corporate. Why not? That sounds amazing.
Absolutely. Well, guys, this has been a great conversation. Wilson, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure to have you. We just kept finding out new nuggets about you the whole time. It was so fascinating.
Yeah.
But I think this is all the time we have for today. So thank you for joining us. Thank all of you for watching us. And we'll be back in 2 weeks with yet another episode of Demystifying AI for MSPs. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.